Welcome to District Command Central, your go-to source for the latest news and updates on the Washington Commanders. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a play. The Washington Commanders walked into their bye week with the kind of energy you'd expect from a team dragging itself across the finish line of a marathon it never trained for. Nobody, and I mean nobody, thought this squad would be sitting at 3-8 when the schedule finally tossed them a break. Not the fans, not the analysts, certainly not Dan Quinn. But here we are, entering a late season breather that feels less like a strategic pause and more like an emotional reset button smashed out of pure necessity. And when Quinn stepped up and said what everyone had been thinking, it was like letting some long stagnant air finally escape the room. What makes this moment so surreal is how far the expectations sat from the reality. Washington didn't just stumble, they face-planted into a stretch of the calendar that has exposed every crack, every roster gamble, and every lingering injury that's dragged them down. Fans spent the offseason buzzing about the evolution of Adam Peters' vision and the continuing growth under Quinn. They played out scenarios in their heads: wild card pushes, defensive resurgence, maybe even some primetime swagger, but injuries piled up like unpaid bills, confidence drained, and the Commanders kept sinking week after week until the season's narrative turned from promising to luckless in record time. And that's why Quinn's message hit so hard. He didn't sugarcoat the moment, didn't pretend this team is one magic meeting away from flipping the script. Instead, he laid down what feels like both a challenge and a confession. Sometimes, he said, the bye week arrives exactly when you're physically hurting. Other times it's when you're mentally or emotionally exhausted. And this year, all three hit at once. Washington slammed the wall head on. And Quinn didn't pretend otherwise. His message to the players was simple: focus on what's next, because that's the only thing they can still influence. That's the kind of honesty fans have been starving for, and let's be real, they need the break as much as the team does after last season's exciting push and the buzz that followed. Nobody was prepared for the emotional whiplash of this campaign. Every Sunday felt like reopening a wound you thought had already scabbed over. The optimism that carried fans through months of off-season excitement evaporated long ago. Now most of them are already peaking ahead to 2026, hoping Peters enters one of the most pivotal off-seasons in franchise history with a crystal-clear understanding of what must change. The thing is, Quinn himself isn't wired to punt the rest of the season, even at 3-8. He's pushing for improvement, growth, and anything positive he can drag out of these final 6 games. He's not looking ahead to next year. He's not chalking this up to injuries, bad luck, or roster deficiencies. That's just not who he is, and honestly, that resolve is probably why he's still commanding respect in a room that's endured a brutal run of bad breaks. He's fighting for every inch left on the schedule, and he wants his players to do the same. These upcoming games might not rewrite the season, but they will reveal who's built for this team's future and who's simply passing through. And speaking of roster evaluation, let's talk about the biggest, ugliest issue lurking during this bye week: the secondary. You remember that era when Washington's identity was supposed to be a defensive line stacked with first-round monsters: Chase Young, Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat, Darren Payne. Every week felt like a commercial for Build the Wall. In theory, that line was going to steamroll offenses for years. In practice, well, we all know how that turned out. The sacks didn't come, the chemistry never fully clicked, and the hype slowly dissolved into frustration. Now fast forward to the present, and you can almost see Peters trying to recreate that strategy in the defensive backfield, but on a budget. Instead of spending first-rounders, he's stacking second-round investments: Quan Martin in 2023, Mike Sainristil in 2024, Trey Amos in 2025. These three were supposed to form the new nucleus, the revamped identity, the next great wave of Washington defense. But this year, the return on investment has been rougher than anyone expected. Injuries have absolutely played a role. Losing Will Harris hurt more than most fans realized in the moment. Marshawn Lattimore was just starting to show flashes of his old form before tearing his ACL again. It's brutal, and it may very well mark the end of his Washington tenure. Then there's the pass rush, or the lack of one. Fans begged for help after Dante Fowler Jr. walked in free agency. Those concerns were justified. Dorrance Armstrong Jr. was the one guy who looked like he might emerge as a consistent threat until he also went down. And once the pass rush collapsed, the secondary became exposed in ways that no scheme can cover up. But here's the problem you can't avoid, even with all those injuries. Washington's young defensive backs simply haven't been good enough. And it's not a situation where the team needs a deep statistical breakdown to explain it. Every metric, every grade, every eye test says the same thing. Martin ranks near the bottom of all safeties in the league. Sainer, Steele, and Amos sit in the lower quarter among corners, completion percentage, allowed, ugly, yards per target, rough, missed tackles, frequent, opposing passer rating. Don't look unless you're ready for disappointment. So the question is obvious: are these players truly the building blocks Peters thought they were? Or is this season giving us a clearer, less flattering picture? It's complicated, because all three have shown flashes. Amos opened the season playing like a breakout star before tailing off. Sainer, Steele, and Martin were solid last year, which raises the possibility that 2025 is the fluke. But if last year was the outlier instead, Peters has a serious personnel problem on his hands. And it gets worse when you zoom out. Washington spent years neglecting the secondary in the draft. Rivera tried to fix that with Benjamin St. Juste and Emmanuel Forbes Jr., but both were quickly moved on once the new regime took over. Before St. Juste, Washington hadn't taken a defensive back early since Fabian Murrow in 2017. So yes, the impulse to invest in young DBS made complete sense. The execution just hasn't produced results yet. And if these 3 second-rounders don't rebound, Washington could be forced back to square one with no hidden gems waiting in the wings. That's why this bye week is more than a pause. It's a reckoning. It's a moment for Peters, Quinn, the locker room, and the fan base to stare down what this season has truly revealed. Maybe the injuries mask potential. Maybe the players need time. Maybe the defensive scheme needs tweaking. Or maybe the team must make hard decisions sooner than expected. Either way, the Commanders desperately need this reset before heading into their Sunday night football showdown with the Denver Broncos. A little time away can change everything: energy, clarity, urgency. Maybe that's all this team needs. Maybe the bye week will do what the schedule, the training room, and the roster churn haven't been able to accomplish: bring this squad back to life. If you're enjoying the coverage, make sure to smash that like button and drop a comment with your thoughts on the Commanders' latest moves. We want to hear from you. The world of the NFL is never short of drama, and lately, all eyes are turning toward Washington as rumors swirl around one of their brightest offensive talents, Terry McLaurin, the wide receiver, who has long been a beacon of consistency for the Commanders, has finally broken his silence, and the football universe is buzzing. His words didn't come through the usual channels of carefully vetted press conferences or the polished interviews teams like to release. Instead, this was raw, unfiltered, a true window into frustration that fans have long suspected but never heard articulated in such a stark, no-nonsense way. "I'm tired of pretending everything is okay in Washington," McLaurin reportedly said. And just like that, the floodgates opened. You can almost feel the collective gasp across social media platforms, where every tweet, thread, and post exploded with speculation. What does this mean for the locker room chemistry? How does this shift the power dynamics within the team? The questions are endless, and insiders are already pointing to tension that may have been simmering beneath the surface for months, if not years. From the moment McLaurin declared his frustration, analysts and fans alike have been dissecting every potential cause, and the theories are as varied as they are dramatic. Some suggest it's a culmination of missed opportunities, games where he carried the team only to see inconsistent quarterback play, or questionable coaching decisions thwarting the offense's potential. Others point to front office turmoil, whispering about internal disagreements, contract negotiations, and the classic friction that tends to bubble up in organizations when star players feel undervalued or misunderstood. There's also the human element, the psychological toll of performing at a high level while feeling unsupported. McLaurin's career has been defined by resilience, yet his latest statements hint at a man ready to challenge the status quo, unwilling to continue smiling for cameras while frustrations mount behind closed doors. It's this authenticity that has fans captivated. Here is a player whose loyalty has always been unquestioned, now confronting the realities of a team that, according to him, hasn't fully met the expectations he, or perhaps he and the fans, feel they are capable of achieving. And of course, no McLaurin story is complete without considering the implications for the wider NFL landscape. Every time a high-profile player publicly voices dissatisfaction, it sends ripples far beyond a single locker room. Rival teams watch closely, scouts recalibrate their projections, and general managers begin to reassess not just the current roster, but the culture they are cultivating. The Commanders, historically known for periods of both brilliance and dysfunction, now find themselves at a crossroads. Will this be a wake-up call for leadership to address long-standing structural issues? Or will it mark the beginning of a slow unraveling that could see McLAURIN exploring options elsewhere? Rumors of trade talks and contract leverage immediately began to circulate after his comments, with some suggesting that McLAURIN could be angling for a move that would place him in a more competitive environment, one where his talents are fully utilized and appreciated. The idea alone sends shivers down the spine of Commanders fans, who have come to rely on him not just as a player, but as the heartbeat of the team's offensive identity. The timing of McLaurin's statements is equally intriguing. Without specifying exact circumstances, he painted a picture of mounting frustration, one that likely has been building for months. Observers point to critical moments where his impact on the field should have translated into team success but didn't. Moments that can weigh heavily on a player of his caliber. When a star receiver feels stifled or underutilized, it isn't just about personal stats. It's about the competitive integrity of the entire team. The underlying message seems to be a call for accountability, not just within the locker room but at every level of the organization. Coaches, management, and teammates all fall under the microscope when someone of McLaurin's stature speaks openly. Every decision from play calling to personnel choices gets reevaluated through this lens, as fans and analysts dissect the dynamics that could lead to either a turnaround or a further decline. It's a dramatic narrative that almost writes itself. The talented, loyal player at odds with a system that hasn't fully met his expectations, and a franchise forced to confront internal challenges in real time. The social media reaction to McLaurin's candor has been predictably explosive. Clips from interviews, screenshots of quotes, and expert commentary flood feeds nonstop, creating a 24/7 cycle of analysis and speculation. Former players weigh in, sharing their own experiences of similar frustrations, while fans debate the root causes and potential solutions. It's the kind of conversation that makes the NFL more than a game. It becomes a reflection of leadership, loyalty, and the high stakes of professional sports. Analysts are quick to break down possible scenarios, from McLaurin demanding a bigger role in offensive schemes, to more controversial whispers about a potential exit from Washington. Each interpretation is met with both support and skepticism, underscoring just how complex the situation has become. The mere fact that McLaurin's words have resonated so widely speaks to his influence within the league. His voice carries weight, and now, more than ever, it seems poised to catalyze change. Whether that change occurs on the practice field, in the front office, or somewhere in between. What makes this situation even more compelling is the contrast between McLaurin's public persona and his private frustrations. For years, fans have admired him not just for his athleticism, but for his professionalism, his ability to maintain composure under pressure, and his relentless work ethic. Seeing that carefully maintained facade crack, even slightly, is jarring. It humanizes the sport in a way that stats and highlight reels cannot. There's something undeniably magnetic about the moment a player of McLaurin's caliber speaks truth to power, even if that truth is uncomfortable, in the grand narrative of the NFL. These moments are rare but unforgettable. They invite debate, introspection, and most importantly, anticipation. What happens next becomes the focal point. Will the team rally to address his concerns, or will the tension escalate, leaving fans and commentators alike on edge? Every game, every decision, every press conference now carries the weight of potential consequences stemming from this one candid declaration. Meanwhile, the rumor mill churns at full speed. Insider sources hint at meetings behind closed doors, urgent calls from management, and a renewed focus on how to retain top talent in an environment that has been perceived as turbulent. Trade rumors, contract renegotiations, and even coaching shakeups are all whispered about in hushed tones, each theory gaining traction as speculation runs rampant. It's a classic sports drama, one that blends reality, perception, and emotion into a narrative that feels larger than life. McLaurin's voice acts as the spark in this combustible environment, igniting conversations that reach far beyond Washington. The story is no longer just about a single player's dissatisfaction. It has evolved into a lens through which to examine the very fabric of the team, and perhaps even the league itself. In the end, Terry McLaurin's statement is more than just a headline. It's a call to attention. It underscores the pressures athletes face, the high expectations of fans, and the challenges of maintaining team cohesion in a highly competitive league. Whether the Commanders respond by adjusting strategies, rethinking leadership, or making personnel moves, the ripple effects are undeniable. McLAURIN has put everyone on notice. The days of silent endurance are over, and the story is still unfolding for fans, analysts, and the NFL at large. This is more than a rumor, it's a turning point, a moment that will be dissected, debated, and remembered for years to come. The intrigue, the speculation, the potential shakeups, it's all part of the spectacle. And one thing is certain, nobody involved is likely to forget that candid outburst anytime soon. McLaurin's voice, finally unfiltered, has changed the narrative. And now the football world waits, watches, and wonders what will come next in a saga that feels equal parts drama, tension, and unvarnished reality. The story isn't just about a player frustrated with his circumstances, it's about the collision of talent, ambition, and organizational culture. And the reverberations of that collision are just beginning to be felt. Thanks for tuning into District Command Central. Make sure to subscribe and follow us for all the Commanders news you need. Until next time, keep the faith and hail to the Commanders.